Baradan Shamai, I am Lord Welshie, and I've just got a pearl. Me, a pearl. And she looks like a fancy one too. Yes, this is going to be a quick look at the Funko Pop Pearl, part of the Steven Universe range from Funko. So let's just get straight into it, shall we? First of all, the box is pretty standard fare, I think, for Funko. You have got the clear window across the front and to the side so that you get a really nice clear view of your figurine before you even open it, so you're pretty clear on what you're getting. In terms of the cover art, standard Steven Universe sort of logo across the top. You've got your enlarged image of Pearl on the front as well, which matches the image on the side. Pretty nice artwork, actually. I think it looks nice, crisp, clean, clear. Again, pretty standard stuff. And then on the back, you have got the sort of additional range of the figures in this sort of production range. So pretty straightforward with what's on the outside of the box. Let's see what's on the inside. So let's get this opened up. So initial impressions are pretty good. It seems like a decent, pretty well made figure. It's got kind of good heft to it. Not a lot of weight, but in terms of the kind of feeling of solidity to it, pretty good. It doesn't feel like I'm going to break it if I drop it. Not that I would want to drop her, but I'm not worried about it necessarily breaking apart on impact with the ground. So that's always a plus. You do have a little bit of movement to the body between the head and the neck, so you can actually... That's actually kind of weird on screen. So you can actually rotate the head a bit. Not sure how often that's meant to happen or how far you should be able to go. You can actually rotate completely the wrong way around, so her head is on backwards. But nice little feature because you can adjust the pose a little bit on your figure, which is a nice touch, I suppose. So you can put a slightly sideways on kind of pose to her, which is quite cool. In terms of the colouring, kind of, again, first impressions, looks pretty good, fairly accurate in terms of how it should be compared to the show. But looking a bit closer, it's not quite there. They're ever so slightly off. So, for example, the colour on her leggings, I think, is actually a slightly darker yellow than her character in the show. I kind of get why they did this, because a lighter colour wouldn't necessarily show as obviously against the colouring of her skin tone, of her legs between her socks and her leggings there. But with the star on the front of her actual shirt, sorry, this might go a little bit out of focus, you can actually see, I don't know how well this is going to come up on the camera, but they've used just a single layer of the yellow on top of the blue for kind of her shirt, and you can actually see the blue coming through from underneath the yellow. Now again, I kind of get why they only used a single layer of the paint to do that. Anymore, it would probably just look a bit over the top. But I mean, from a distance, you can't really tell. Yeah, there we go. You can't really tell from a distance. It's only when you get in close that you could actually see that. So not too much of an issue there. In terms of the hair colouring, fairly close, fairly good. Again, I'm hoping the webcam picks this up fairly well. Pretty close to the colouring on the show for Pearl. There's a couple of points where there's kind of blemishes in the actual paintwork on the hair, and again, from a distance it's not massively noticeable, but you can definitely see it if you know that it's there, and you do notice it when you first remove Pearl from her packaging. Other things with the colouring, on first glance, I actually thought that the blue of her shirt and the colour of her sash were the same, especially when inside the packaging, but on closer inspection they are actually slightly different tones, as they are for the character in the show. And that's a really nice touch. It's not the easiest thing to see, again, from a distance, but closer up you can see that attention to detail, so that's good. Another thing with the sash, I do like this little sort of tie-off on the back, so it's clearly meant to look like a separate piece of clothing from her undershirt, like a separate piece, which again is good. It's a nice little piece of detail, the way it just sort of hangs down the back there. Get my hand out of the way, there we go, so you can actually see that a bit clearer. So again, quite a nice touch. In terms of the actual design, face looks okay. I think this is a limitation on the design of what the Funko characters tend to look like. They always have this kind of widened, flattened, kind of a stout, squat head. So I think they've done an okay job kind of moving the character to their kind of style. But it just looks a little bit off for Pearl. Not to say that it's bad at all. I do still quite like the design, but it doesn't necessarily evoke the kind of feeling that you should really have from Pearl's character. But still, pretty good overall. I think maybe the nose has something to do with it as well, because it's a very prominent feature for Pearl, and it's just like slap bang in the centre of the face. Which noses typically are. But on something this kind of shape, looks a little bit odd. But again, not necessarily bad, just don't know if there may have been a slightly better way of designing that. In terms of the pose, I actually do quite like the pose. As we all know, Pearl's character is very graceful. Her dance style is kind of based on ballet, and the way they've designed her is intended to kind of evoke that feeling. So I'll bring her in a bit. So the way she's got her hands kind of gives that almost like delicate step forward kind of feeling, and the placement of her feet kind of match that as well. The way one is turned to the side and one is pointing straight ahead, as if, well, not quite straight ahead at a slight angle, as if she's doing this kind of very graceful step forward. So again, I quite like the individual moulding of the fingers on the side as well. Looks very good. Overall pose, oh yeah, I think it looks all right. I think it looks quite good. I've seen some people might have suggested maybe if she had her hands behind her back, that might work, but for me, I actually quite like this pose. I think it works quite well. So yeah, overall, I do like the figurine. I think it's very, very nice. As I say, there's a couple of things that maybe I'd have done differently in terms of the design of the head. Maybe could have been a little bit more in keeping with the character of Pearl. There's a couple of the blemishes in the paintwork that, you know, you do get in manufactured products like this every now and again. It does happen, but it doesn't take away from the look of the figurine of Pearl. When she's sort of further away, when she's on display, it looks fine. It's just when you've got this closer inspection. Being able to turn her head so that she's looking, or just rotate her body like this, that's kind of cool. Again, I don't know how much that should turn. This is actually the first Funko Pop that I've had. I've seen them before, but this is the first one I've owned. I don't tend to fiddle with them that much. But, I mean, overall, I do like the character. Looks very, very nice, and the feeling of stability is, you know, rigidity, stability is a bonus. And I finally have a friend for Tiny Jensen back there, so that's always a plus. Here you go, Tiny Jensen. Meet Pearl.
I never asked for this.